good to see most faces online. I'd like to call the village board meeting for July 7, 2020 to order. This meeting of the Sugar Grove Village Board will be held as outlined in Public Act 101-0640, which waives the Open Meetings Act requirement that a physical quorum of elected officials be present to hold a public meeting in the event of a public health disaster, declaration, and a determination by the village president. Governor Pritzker issued a statewide disaster declaration on June 26, 2020, and in response, President Shawn Michaels determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent at this time. So, a little formality to get through. If we may, I'll stand and recite the pledge. Ted, would you please lead us?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Allison?
Trustee Herron?
Here.
Trustee Montalto?
Here.
Trustee Conan?
Here.
Trustee Cook?
Here.
Trustee Lindy?
Here.
President Michaels?
Here. Thank you. All right. There's no public hearings, appointments, and presentations. I'd like to congratulate Matt and the finance staff and the GFOA Certificate of Achievement and Excellence for Financial Reporting. So thank you, Matt and staff.
Thank you.
It's got to be year 14 or 15 that we've had this consecutively. So, long time.
It's fun.
How long, Matt?
I believe this is almost 20 years.
Oh, that long.
For the budget award is about 14 or 15, I think.
Okay. Well, that's good. It was nice that they quit sending out plaques every year because we'd probably have a whole wall contributed or wallpapered with the plaques. So now that they just send out little medallions is much better. So
yeah, they don't even send you paperwork anymore. It's all through a portal.
Oh, all right. Well, good. Okay. There is no one here at the Village Hall for public to address the board. I think we have one caller online. So at this time, I'll open up public to address the board. Any public comments? There's only one caller. If the caller would like to bring up any public comments, first call, second call, final call. Okay. Close that portion. Joe is not here to give a airport report, so close that portion. Under tonight's consent agenda, we have approval of minutes of June 16th, approval of the vouchers, a resolution adopting a complete streets policy, a resolution approving a contract for Granite Road left turn construction, and a resolution approving a re-subdivision plat for 474 division. Any requests to remove an item? One more opportunity. Any requests to remove an item? Okay, hearing none, may I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Again, any requests to remove an item? I might have got out of sorts. Okay, hearing none. Allison, roll call.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Herron?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Trustee Lindy?
Aye.
Trustee Conan?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Under discussion items, we're going to postpone the discussion of the Blackberry Creek Bike Pedestrian Bridge and the water system planning plan. Michelle Pietrowski has had a death in her family. Her mom passed away, so I'd like to pass on our condolences on behalf of the village, and we'll pick this up when Michelle is back, and there's an appropriate time to have these discussions. It was nothing pressing, something that I've been working with staff to have some substance to our meetings, and again, nothing real pressing. Emergency communication, community notification system. Chief Rollins.
Thank you, Sean. Tonight, we have information that's available to us so that we can better provide communication during managed or an event or a crisis. And during, so we can do it before, during, or after the event. And if it's a managed crisis, obviously it's important to get the information out during and also afterwards. So we have seen a number of new platforms that have come across to the village over the last year. This 2020 has opened up a lot of eyes and ears to our residents and businesses. We found that there's been some gaps with being able to communicate with everybody. Not everyone is always monitoring the village's social media pages, either the website or the Facebook, or they're not getting messages through other means. We've been utilizing new tools in the last couple of years, which is the portable message boards, the signs that you see that are out there. However, unless you're driving by them, you're not able to know what is being communicated across those. The village currently utilizes Facebook, Nextdoor app. We do alerts. We do press releases. We do Facebook and again the village social media page, the internet page. During COVID and also recently during our civil unrests, when we had a number of residents call us at the various desks to know what was going on and what they can do to stay plugged in. Most of them had the capability of monitoring Facebook or the village website. However, there were some individuals that are not on Facebook or do not monitor social media, but they said they had smartphones. Can they get text messages? So we started talking about this amongst ourselves as department heads, a better way of communicating more directly with our residents and with our businesses. Specifically, when we put something out on Facebook, it goes out to everyone. And that's okay for anyone that's traveling through the area or anyone that has friends or family in Sugar Grove. But we can do a better job targeting the residents and the businesses here in Sugar Grove on a timely basis if they opt in and they can go to a product such as the Everbridge Nixle platform. And we have reached out to other communities around us, and this is a platform that many of them are using to communicate with residents. Typically, a resident would just opt in. They can either put in that they want to get both an email and or text, or they can just put down one or the other. And then they can always opt out too if they move away from the area, if they feel like they're getting too much information. So technology has really changed over the last 3 to 4 years, and being able to deliver crisis communication to the residents and the business is important. So one of the platforms that we have been looking at, as I mentioned earlier, was the Everbridge Nixle. They deliver services for us that we can integrate it with our Facebook page, so we can just push one message out into Nixle. It will send it into many different social media platforms, so we don't have to go into each site. If we want to narrow the scope down to who we're notifying, we can set up a polygram around a certain neighborhood and just go to those residents, so we don't have, if it's a boil order or if it's a traffic accident or if we're looking for a missing child, we just want to notify a specific area, we can target specific residences and homes. And I know this is an unbudgeted item at this time. It did not come forth during the budget process, but as we've encountered all these other events throughout this year, we thought it was important to bring these options to you and to see if this is something that we would like to pursue this year, or if you want us to come back next year, or is this something that we can purchase today, and then we would be able to look at two different options that are available through Nixle. And be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Pat, could you tell us some of the communities that are using this program in the area?
Sure. North Aurora, Naperville, Aurora. And grab my list here.
I would like to add, while Pat's looking for that, I think a more zoned in boil order could be helpful to us as well, because I do get questions from other parts of the community when we issue a boil order in one specific location. Also with the road construction project, I think if we were able to notify one subdivision with specific information, this year it would have been Mallard Point and Windsor West. And I also believe, Pat, if you could explain, I believe they have an ability to dump in phone numbers, not just sign up. But I know this year, as an example, the two main subdivisions where the work was, we did send a physical letter to the residents, which we would have also encouraged them to sign up for this information. But go ahead, Pat.
Yes, the Everbridge, the Nixle Everbridge 360, that's the all-inclusive one that allows them to get data from the 911 databases, and they can pull it up and upload it for us, so they don't have to manually put in the information, and we don't have to worry about some of them opting in. And the other one, and the Nixle 360 allows us to also send a voice message to two phone numbers and two other cell carriers. So that's the new enhanced one, and that includes the ability to get the 911 data, so we don't have to always get the opt-in. But obviously, if everyone has a cell phone, that 911 data is a little harder to obtain versus the landlines. I have a ton of communities, including the state police in many counties, Crystal Lake, Fox Lake, McHenry, City of Chicago, Cook County, Will County, and there's I believe over 70 agencies using the Nixle Everbridge application. Now, there's competitors out there. We looked at other competitors as well, but this one seems to be getting the high remarks from most of the communities we've spoken with.
What's the cost on it?
Go ahead, Jen.
No, Rick got a question too.
I just said, what's the cost on this again?
So for the Nixle Engage, the first year is $3,900 and reoccurring annual cost of $3,500, and that's the lower level one. And to purchase the Nixle 360, the more robust program, the first year is $5,200 with an annual reoccurring cost of $4,800.
Okay.
And typically, when you hit code red or reverse 911, many agencies are paying double and triple this amount. And we're at a population size at this price from Nixle, for Everbridge Nixle, is lower than the Aurora or Naperville, because they base it off the population.
Go ahead.
Sounds like a
My question was, I'm curious if Pat knows if this is what the school district uses. Because I know as a parent, we get, whenever there's a notification or something coming out, I always get a text. I get phone calls to the house, and then the text usually notifies you to check your email. So I didn't know if this was a similar system, if it's the same thing. and whether you have spoken to the school district at all. Maybe Sean Heron knows what their system is.
Above my pay grade. I know that they have something. I don't know what it is, but I wondered something along the same lines. I was actually wondering.
I think it's effective, honestly, because you don't always, check your email every minute, or you might not have it ding your phone, but your text message usually you do. And so I feel like that part is effective, to get a text message to then say, so they're not sending you the whole message on text, check your email. And typically you'll also get the phone call on certain messages, but not all the same. Mostly the text message comes with a notification to check your email. But I do think that is a valuable way to contact people. My question, and I'm sure it's on everyone's mind, in light of this year's budget and what we've already, budgeting a deficit, and then unknown revenue to the village at this point. I don't know how we just jump in and do this now. That's just my thought. I'm just starting the year, right?
Yeah, we're about 3 months into it. I just want to add that when there were the riots in Aurora, Pat posted something on Facebook at almost 10 o'clock at night, and within 10 minutes there were 100 likes, so you don't know how many people reviewed it, but to have that many likes in 10 minutes was pretty amazing. So I think people are interested in what's going on, and getting information out sooner than later is the best. Is there any talk of the CARES funding coming from the county or anything like that could help cover an expense like this?
I know that there should be. A bird told me that they could likely see payments paid out to municipalities maybe by the end of July.
Yeah, I was going to say it appears that there will be some CARES funding available, on a per capita basis. I can't say with certainty that this would be an eligible expense, but I think, to the degree it is, it would be a first year expense, not an ongoing annual cost. So I think that would be, I think it's another good tool. I think it's hard to judge how many more additional people we would hit. If you got, generally speaking, I think if you're going to get text messages, you probably got a smartphone. If you have a smartphone and you're interested, you can look at our website. You could join Facebook and not ever post anything. I think this is probably potentially a more effective tool if people sign up. But yeah, my concern just is, while it may not be a massive amount of money, $3,500 or $4,800 a year in, year out. And I would expect at some point there'll be price increases. Given where we're at right now, it would be nice to be able to identify, unfortunately I can't sit here and say I can identify an ongoing funding source. It would be more likely, what are we willing to cut to pay for this?
So it sounds like a lot of value for the service and the price. Kind of struck me as a pretty good compromise, a pretty good balance of being able to deliver what I think would be a very valuable service for relatively not a heck of a lot of money, and especially with the timing. To me, it made sense to try to think about jumping in right now, but I understand that the money's not necessarily there yet, but something could be coming down the road. I don't know. I think it's, under normal circumstances, I think it'd be a very good thing.
The proposed breakdown with 25% coming out of the police budget, 25% coming out of the streets, and 50% coming out of water and sewer. seems like each department would be able to absorb a $1,200, or especially a water and sewer, $2,400 expense at this point in time. I'm in favor of moving forward just because of the trying times that we're in. There's just trying to get good information out to the community without it being suspect, I think is important. If you have one boil order, that saves a lot of man hours. Granted, we'll still have to do some door-to-door work, but this gets the word out that much quicker if people do sign up. Pat, is, I guess the trick or the question is how do you get people to participate, and how do we get people to sign up? What was the thought on getting people to sign up?
So obviously we would use our other communication channels from Facebook and the village's website. We can put stuff on the water bill. We can, when they walk into the different various buildings, we can put a flyer out there, just reminding them. A lot of our own community residents, they've already signed up for Aurora, Nixle, and North Aurora, Nixle. So many of them are getting information from other communities. So this has been on the radar for us for a while. But until all these other events unfolded this year, did we not realize how many people rely on other means of communication.
Does Kane County offer this on a countywide level?
I believe they're still doing the Code Red reverse 911 system. And again, with people moving around and changing, unless you're updating that system frequently, you could have old data who lives at a certain section of the town that you're trying to deliver the message to.
I really like the idea. I do. I think it's something that will help residents feel safer because they'll be more informed on various things, everything from the boil water orders and any future civil unrest or issues like that. And I tend to, say if we can find the money somewhere, I would want it done sooner rather than later because we don't know what the future holds for us.
I guess the flip side of that, Heidi, would be it sounds like this is an opt-in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pat. So just like someone has to go in and sign up and be a friend of the village's Facebook page, we're going to hope and put those notifications out there via Facebook or in a letter in our water bill to get them to sign up for this. I would think it would be more advantageous maybe to ask the question before we incur the expense. I mean, we've done those surveys. Why can't we ask our residents the best form of communication? I do believe in what the school district is doing is working. I don't know what it is. It might be worth asking them a question before we bear the expense. And maybe, Pat, you've done that. I don't know. It might be the same thing.
I believe they were utilizing a different platform than what's being presented here, and that's totally opt-in as well for the parents too. And if you're not a non-parent of Kingland, you're not receiving those messages unless your kid graduated from high school and you forgot to opt out or whatever it was. So sometimes there's a lapse of getting that information updated, but I believe their system's not as robust as what is being presented tonight, but I'm not 100% sure. So I know they have the capability of both sending alerts out, emergency alerts, scheduled alerts, and then also the emails that go along with it. So,
who would be doing the messaging? Is that like a supervisor at the PD or Public Works, or who would be responsible for getting the message for that particular entity out?
We can share it amongst all the departments, so everyone would have access to the system, and then we would be able to set up some generic messages, and then they can add to it specific to those events for pre-planned events, but something that's unfolding, you can do it on the fly from the scene if need be.
Okay. I'm just wondering, even something as simple as traffic notifications, if there's a bad accident, there's a road closure. I mean, construction on 47. I know I got stuck in it trying to get to Yorkville today, that we were sitting there for 20, 30 minutes. I ended up turning around and coming back because it'd be nice to know that, hey, there's a, 10-mile backup or whatever, and go a different way. That kind of stuff would be nice to put out too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I think the important thing is to make sure we use it if we do go ahead. Could we do what Jen suggested and send out a community survey to see the interest? Seems like a good question to ask our residents, and in a way notify them that we're thinking about doing it, and maybe that would generate some interest in people signing up.
Yeah, I think we could certainly do a survey, and I can, Alice and I can chat, and maybe, as part of the survey could be give us the number you want to use. Essentially use it as a sign up, an advanced sign up tool. I'm not for sure how we would frame that, but if we can, it's one thing for people to say sure, but are they really going to? Or if we could say, okay, give us the phone number or the email address, whatever it is, or the phone number, and see what we get.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this, because we've done this in the past with the village email sign up. How many people are currently on the email list right now?
The eGov, there are over 1,000 for newsletters, and there's about 500 for the Plan Commission agendas and the board agendas. And also, I have been planning during the end of the month for an overall communication survey that asks, in fact, I just was working on it yesterday, the various forms of the newsletters and publications we put out. So it would be very timely to add this feature to that, and then ask for people, we could get the information to sign up more for eGov and more people to sign up for the Nixle if we did decide to go ahead with it. So it's actually very, very timely in terms of the survey that we had been thinking about.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because I know we've sent it out in the water bill before, telling people to sign up for a newsletter if they're interested in getting it. And if you've got like a 10 to 15% reply to that, hopefully we'll get more to this. But I think sending out the survey first is probably a good idea too.
And I think we have roughly 1,000 people that pay their water bills online, and that's about a quarter. I think there's about 4,000, maybe Matt knows, but I think there's about 4,400 households that we send bills to. So if we had a 25% sign-up sheet, I think that's pretty good to get going.
And for comparison, Canelan uses a platform called School Messenger. So I don't know if that was something you wanted to, I would probably look at it after the meeting just to make comparisons, but yeah, not what we're looking at. Sure. So something set up specifically for schools.
All right. Well, Pat, if you would, why don't we take a little time to do the survey and see what type of response we get. That's a good idea. And then we can proceed with this and come back to the board.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Pat. And Tony, thank you. Let's see, amending the agenda to single public comment. That is being proposed. We've been doing it over the last 3 months. It seems like it's worked. Just wanted to open up for discussion.
I think that's a good idea.
My working thought.
Go ahead.
Of course you do. my working thought through this was, it's nice if someone can make a public comment. And I know we've been doing it through the, the coronavirus and in our virtual meetings. But I know it's not that long ago I was a resident, and sometimes when you get to the end of the meeting and the village board has had their discussion items, and the residents are able to pick up information that our board is discussing, they might have something that they then want to add, which would be, relevant to our discussion. That would give us something to think about. And sometimes at the beginning of the meeting, if they're making comments on something that we have as a discussion item, they might just have their thought, but they're not getting the rest of the board's thoughts on it, and their thought might change, and they might have something to add. So if the front half of the meeting is action items, and I know it's scheduled that way, and the back half of the meeting, the end of the meeting is free for the public to add in on the discussion part of it, I would be in favor of keeping both public comments.
Well, I would say on the flip side to that coin, I don't see a problem with leaving it the way it is either, Jen. But on the flip side to that coin, if the public made comments at the beginning of the meeting and that covered the stuff we were going to, in the consent agenda prior to us voting, that makes total sense. The discussion items we don't vote on, until the following meeting, so they would be able to talk about those at the next meeting before we voted on them anyway, right?
Unless they're not able to attend the next meeting. But it's not like we have a huge attendance at every meeting.
Okay.
And because we don't usually have a huge attendance, we've been pretty informal when we have had residents with comments or questions. And I think that we've taken those. We haven't always responded to them on the spot. We have let residents speak during that time while we're discussing. Also, they raise their hand and speak. So I'd be okay with just one, maybe towards the end before the discussion items.
Well, again, I'll play devil's advocate on the other side now. If we wait for them to make the public comment, what if they want to comment about something we're going to vote on and we've already voted on it before they made their comment? That's a concern. I think it's more, I don't have a problem with leaving one in the beginning and one toward the end like we've been doing. I think we just need to concentrate more on limiting the time of the public comment so that we don't have people rambling on for 15 or 20 minutes saying the same thing. Keep it to 2 or 3 minutes, whatever the allotted time is supposed to be. And I think it would alleviate some of the delay of the meetings by, not letting people go on for 15 or 20 minutes, just repeating what they're saying.
I agree with Rick and Jen as far as leaving them at the front and the back, and also definitely with Rick making sure that we make the time limit.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. Okay. All right. Any other issues to come for discussion items?
I have one.
Sure.
I had a resident contact me just yesterday about installing a little lending library, one of those little boxes like on a mailbox that has books in them that are free for anybody to come take and borrow and put back in. And they did their due diligence. They went to the village and asked about installing it. They have it built, and they were told that it's not allowed by our code, our zoning code, because it's not specifically called out as allowed. So, one, I wanted to see, is there any way that we could help allow these to be put up without a problem? I think it's kind of ridiculous to say, no, you can't, because, it's a little, I don't know if you guys have seen them. They're really cute little boxes with the books in them. and I think it'd be great. It's great for the community. And two, is there any way maybe we can have a discussion for small things like this that that should be able to say, oh, well, yeah, that's pretty close to a mailbox, or it's pretty close to this, and it should be allowed, without them having to go through a whole process of getting an amendment to the code. So I wanted to bring that up, and I know Walter I talked to a lot, and he can maybe expand a little bit on, this type of situation.
Specifically with the lending library or the free library, the issue is the zoning ordinance gives the zoning administrator very little discretion in determining whether a use that's not listed is permitted. And it gives absolutely zero discretion when it comes to accessory structures and uses. And that's where we have the rub with this lending library situation. Because it's not specifically identified, the zoning administrator determined that it's not permitted, so it's prohibited. The options are this particular individual could file an appeal of the zoning administrator's decision, which would go to the plan commission. But the issue there is it's treated just like a text amendment. So public hearing, notice, all that other stuff is required. And of course, the other option is to do a text amendment and amend the zoning ordinance, which, either one of those could be done, but they're going to take time. And, clearly this individual wants to establish it now. And so we're looking for a way to, help this individual. The third option is, even though the zoning ordinance doesn't give any room for discretion with respect to accessory structures and uses such as this, one of the uses that is permitted is mailboxes. Now, we're not talking about mailboxes at the street. That's something completely different. The zoning ordinance doesn't regulate anything in the public right of way. We're talking about, if you're familiar with Waterford, over on Capitol Drive, they have community mailboxes that are on private property. So that would be an example of an accessory mailbox that the zoning ordinance is addressing. But when you look at that, really that's not too terribly far from the purpose and function of the lending library. And so we could consider the lending library not a lending library, but a book mailbox. And then, permit it, but, we do have some concerns about allowing these. And so what I would propose is, if the board is interested with this approach, considering it a book mailbox, is we require a building permit for the only purpose of having conditions of approval, which would be the location of it, because we don't want it in the right of way. It has to be far enough off the sidewalk where people can't congregate and stand in the sidewalk and block the sidewalk. And, and other things. We haven't thought of any yet, but those are the first two that come to mind. That way we could address this need by the resident. We still comply with the zoning ordinance, and we also have the ability, in the event that this individual, or say somebody else wants to do it, puts it in a location we don't want, we can use the building permit as the way to control where it goes. And if they violate it, then they violated the building permit, and we can, follow that enforcement action that way. Any thoughts, comments?
Well, I think having a general permit process is a good thing to do just that, to make sure it's in an acceptable location and not everybody takes into consideration traffic or the sight lines that a building inspector or the development department might consider. So I think that's a good way of going.
My only initial thought, I think they're great. I think they're great for a community. I saw during COVID, there were on the news, there were families out there that had them and they were switching out the books with canned goods. So families could come by and grab canned goods out of the box. My only thought would be, if somebody truly is interested in having that set up, is it something they can't put on their front porch, and have it on their front porch for someone to walk up and get, or is that too intrusive? I don't know.
I don't know for sure, but I suspect that the reason that these are placed out in the yard is to make it, I guess, more inviting for the passerby or people in the neighborhood instead of going up to the door. I'm just speculating. I don't know.
And more visible.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Speaking of someone who has a dog that gets overly excited, I think it would be better if there were people coming to the front of the yard as opposed to the front door.
True.
Well, that makes sense.
I think typically you can custom look however you want, but typically they're on a 4x4. I did one up in Elburn at our school, set everything up, and we had it installed up there. And there were no, I don't know, I may be guilty of not checking with the village first, but we set one up there and off the sidewalk, highly visible area. I would be for a maybe some type of permit fee, or permit. But can we waive the fee? Can we not have, because typically these are like good deeds, like community, like a lot of times kids do these, maybe Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts do these for projects, something like that.
Well, my intention was to just charge a nominal $1 for the permit because I don't want to start issuing permits for no fee. I think that's a dangerous precedent. But at least, because there should be some consideration for the permit, and $1.
I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the concept. I just donate books to the library and let them check them out free to people in town. Who maintains it? Who monitors what kind of books are going in it? All those questions come to mind for me. I think it'd be easier just to let the library be a library, but that's just me.
The people that put them up go out and check on things every few days. A lot of times people swap out books. So yeah, there could be a risk there, but it would usually, I think if somebody's putting this thing up, they're probably putting it up on their property. So they're probably going to see it every day, every couple of days. They're going to be in it quite often, and I haven't seen that as much of an issue.
Okay.
Again, you want to look at how you're treating it. If you specifically want to have more specific regulations toward what a little free library would be and have a very specific, set of information that they need to provide, then you would want code to ask the information. If you want to treat it as a mailbox, or like the mailbox, then you treat it how your code treats a mailbox currently. What I have seen in communities do is, because sometimes there'll be a sponsoring organization that might be different than the property owner. So there could be some sort of application form that just specifies who's responsible for maintaining it in the case that, there's damage, who's responsible, who's kind of the primary contact, because it may or may not be the person who's allowing it on their property. And that would be something that would be different than an ordinary building permit. But those are all, I think, questions just as how the board wants to treat this and how much oversight they want to have, in the management, if you will, of the library itself.
Yeah, I was thinking also that if a library like this would become in disrepair, how do we address that? So having some type of permit process would probably be good.
Well, if it falls into disrepair, it would be a simple property maintenance issue.
Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I was just going to say though, there's so many of us in a homeowners association. Mm-hmm. I would think that, regardless of what the village does, your homeowners association might not let you do it. So I don't know, Heidi, if this is a neighbor of yours and whether your homeowners association would let you do it, but obviously I'm looking at Tony, and Pressberry would never allow this. And right now it's a temporary structure. You couldn't do it in our neighborhood. So I'm sure there's a lot of our CCNRs that are written very similarly that wouldn't allow it. So that's a governing body that they have to look into as well.
They already have permission from their HOA. It's not my neighbor, but the person said they already got their HOA permission for it. So, but that is an additional level of governing body to make sure it's maintained, I believe, too. But yes, they do have permission from their HOA.
And just one more consideration, is when, again, if you're going to stretch the mailbox analogy, are you comfortable with what people could be putting in these, is libraries okay? Where, kind of where's the line get drawn? Is food okay? Is this okay? Because you're allowing it or you're not allowing it. Insofar as it's analogous to a mailbox. So again, if you're drawing that comparison, just be ready to either allow or defend why you're not allowing, something that we're not thinking of right now that could be proposed in the future that's similar.
True. Well, I think maybe the way to proceed is ask Walter to draft the ordinance or modify the mailbox ordinance, taking into consideration some of the comments that came up. I didn't hear anybody really opposed to the concept of the library. It sounds like there's a lot of people that can champion this or, control it based on subdivisions and HOAs. So we would not be the only ones that would be policing this.
Well, what I'll do is I'll prepare a recommended list of conditions of approval for the board to review, and I'll pass it out in the next day or so. Assuming that there's no objections, then we'll move along with the building permit approach with this particular case and apply those conditions of approval.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, thank you. All right. Any questions for staff?
Sean, if I may, before you move on, I think the other thing Heidi had mentioned was whether the board wanted to potentially for a discussion item at a future meeting, talk about the appeal process, get a better understanding of it, and explore if there's any need or desire to amend it at all. So when situations like this do come up, that there might be more flexibility. So we wouldn't be looking for any real direction tonight other than just the fact, is it something you're interested in exploring further?
Yeah, because my thought is, if the code says pretty much you can't, if it's not on this list, it's not allowed, that puts a great burden on someone who has, we can't predict everything that's going to be there. And it creates a large burden for our residents if they come up with something like this to go through this whole process and maybe get a, amendment done and everything. Is there a better way of doing this? Is there a way to give some flexibility to the building department with the approval of the plan commission or something for small items? I just wanted to open that up as a discussion.
Yeah, there's certainly a way, and there's a similar text that applies to the special uses that gives the zoning officer discretion to look at the table and see if something fits the nature and purpose. And I think, you pretty easily could just do something, adopt that type of language, and process for something of this nature as well.
Okay. That'd be a great topic. So, okay. Okay.
I've got couple of quick
Go
questions.
ahead.
Asked about other questions for staff. I guess one question we had talked about, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, the issue with Settlers Ridge not doing the median maintenance anymore, and we were going to do some checking into that. Has there been any update? Because I know the weeds in that area are probably 5 to 6 feet high now.
Yeah, I think, we've completed essentially our research, and we did, recently sent the HOA a letter, stating that, we believe it is their responsibility. So we are, giving them a period of time to respond. I think that letter may have just went out either yesterday or today. So, we figure realistically, probably a few weeks before we hear back, because, more than likely they'll have to talk about it at their next meeting before they can respond. So, we're going to see what the response is, and depending upon what it is, we'll come back to you and say, what the options are.
Okay. And the second one, there was supposed to be a Mallard Point resident. She said she was going to call in tonight, but obviously is not out there, who questioned once again, and I brought this up to Walter, I think, a couple of weeks ago, the monument sign for Mallard Point that would be at Brookhaven and Prairie on the west corner. I noticed when I was walking my dog today, because she had asked me the other day, and I took a look at it, the resident that lives on that corner has a landscaping crew that does his yard. They were there today working on the yard, cutting the grass and doing all the stuff around his house, but they ignore the monument sign that's on his property. So the weeds that are growing in front of the Mallard Point entrance sign there, typically from what I remember when we first started the subdivision, any homes that were purchased on the corners at the entrances that had the monument signs, those homeowners were responsible for maintaining the brush and grass and stuff around them. And his landscaping crew does not seem to address that. She said she called about 2 weeks ago to express a concern about it. She had wanted to actually clean it up herself, but I had told her that was the resident's property, and she either needed permission or from him or to call the village to address it. And I find this hard to believe, but she expressed to me this morning that she felt like she was just blown off when she made the call, and it's been about 2 weeks and nothing's been done. So I told her to call in tonight and ask over the air, but she said she would, but I haven't heard her out there, so I'm asking for her.
All right, we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Okay. Any update on the Hannaford Farm park transfer?
I'd have to check my calendar, but the Park District, they're planning on discussing their willingness to accept it at their next board meeting. My understanding from the Hannaford Farm HOA is that they would lean toward, if there's no financial assistance, not taking responsibility for it, because there is some work that needs to be done there, and certainly an ongoing expense. But they're essentially, if the Park District, responded and said, well, they're not willing to take it without financial assistance as well, I think the HOA wants to kind of be on an even playing field, if you will, with whatever may be presented to the Park District. So right now, in my conversations with the Park District, have said that, I don't know that the village is really in a position to offer anybody, any dollars, and certainly not anything significant. But I can't remember if their meeting is this week or next week, but they talked about it at their last meeting, and I know that some of their board members wanted to personally go over there and take a look at it, and then they plan to discuss it again.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right, Tony, the road projects are coming to conclusion. They should be done at the end of the week.
mostly done by the end of the week, but a couple items near the end of the month.
Okay, good. So it's sure making a difference in the different areas, so it looks good. Okay.
Yeah, they're making good progress this year.
Yeah, good dry weather. Pat, 4th of July, no major incidents?
It was a busy 4th of July for the community, and for the most part, we had a couple medical calls that we assisted with, and unfortunately, one of the individuals didn't make it. He had a heart attack and passed away, and another one was a pretty severe fireworks accident that we were on, in addition to handling all the other fireworks complaints going on throughout the rest of the community.
Okay. All right. How many officers did he have on that night?
I think we hold over 2, so we probably on the at one point 3 to 4 into the midnight shift.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Okay. Trustee comments? Ted, any comments?
Do we know anything about when the 47 work between here and Yorkville is going to be done? Any thoughts on that? Anyone have any insight?
They have an October completion date.
Okay. Just wondering. That's all I had.
Okay. Jen?
No, I have nothing new, just trying to bear the heat like the rest of us.
Yeah. All right. Heidi?
Nope, I already gave my comments.
Good. Thank you. Rick?
Nothing other than I had an online Zoom meeting with the Convention Bureau Thursday morning, and there's not a whole lot going on there either. The Batavia has a few things open downtown, and Yorkville had said they were going to have a fireworks display, but other than that, activity-wise, there's not a ton of stuff that's going to be open yet. Everyone's kind of still watching the curve. So, and the only other thing when it comes to, and I think Ted's already checked off, but for those having to go to Yorkville during this, I tried going Prairie and cutting past. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the street. The one Menards is on. Menards Warehouse. Yes, Eldamain. Eldamain is down to 1 lane. They're cementing the east side of the street, so there's a backup there too. So the fastest way to get to Yorkville is to take Orchard to 34 and come in that way.
Okay. Did Raging Waves, are they not opening for the year?
I have not heard anything since the last meeting. Actually, the gentleman that's on the board from Raging Waves was not at this month's meeting.
Okay.
I believe I got an email that said I believe they're opening July 16th.
Okay.
For the season, so they're opening.
Oh, they are. Okay. I knew that was sort of in the balance there, waiting to see what Six Flags did or Great America was doing. So. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Sean?
I have nothing.
Okay. The President's report, I guess good news, bad news. Bad news is Facebook decided to go out to DeKalb to put in a data center. The good news is we were considered on the short list for consideration for a project like that. So I hope we can proceed and look at making data centers part of our zoning ordinance, or maybe a approved use in the area, maybe something to add to future meetings. But Sugar Grove seems to have a lot of the assets that a data center is looking for, with the dark fiber up and down I-88, and high voltage lines and gas backup and access to Chicago and a good employment base. So, I hope that's something we can consider in the future, looking at the tax revenues that DeKalb is going to generate from this, even with the tax abatements or the enterprise zone. It's significant over the 20 years. So I think it would be a good answer to a lot of the residents' concerns about rising taxes. This might not keep taxes from going up, but might hold them still for a little bit longer. But the good news is we're in consideration for that. So I have nothing else. Is there anything else to come before the board? Okay, no need to go to closed session. May I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please. Allison?
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Lundy?
Aye.
Trustee Conan?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Bye.